Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead of you. Today, and everything you need, I have for you a look at Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, Arsenal, and Manchester double game week assets, as well as a look at the bench boost, whether we should or shouldn't be playing it, and whether you should be taking hits to accommodate for a better one. We shall also have a short review of double game week 30. As you can see in the top right corner of your screen, was not great for the rank, but there's a long time to recover, so shall move on and move on quickly. If you have been enjoying the content around here, whether you are a new viewer or an old one, I would greatly appreciate a press of that subscribe button. And equally, if you enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like on it. So anything else needing to be said, apart from the fact that I appreciate all your support as always. Thank you so much. Get into the video. Right, let us start with my team's performance in double game week 32. And whilst the red arrow is of an enormous size, in terms of the team as a whole, I don't think the whole was particularly bad. It's just really a couple of decisions which have been punished so dearly in terms of points. The first one, and for me the actual real big mistake, was going Anthony Gordon over Jacob Murphy on wildcard 30. I've calculated, and that has cost me 33 points and a transfer over the 3 game weeks, which is a huge amount. Now, should the swing be that much? Is the decision warranting of that big of a swing? No, probably not, but it was a mistake, and like it really was. So that happens, and I just have to accept responsibility for that. In terms of the Mateta triple captain, I think now that the game's over, we can talk about it. I personally don't feel particularly bad about it. Again, look, I take full responsibility for it. But this particular triple captain, I don't think is like as bad as it would suggest in the former 2 points. On another day, the cut back to Eze is a couple of inches shorter or further back, and it goes to Mateta, and they go 1-0 up against, go 3-0 up against City, and he stays on the pitch, and they score more goals, or doesn't go off at half time. In the Newcastle game, SARS slips him through when he really should have. He takes the penalty instead of Eze, which considering he scored his last 3 for Palace and he'd be taking them. And then the other one was the Livramento block close to on the line when Mateta swiveled at the end of the half and then getting taken off in the 56th again because his team haven't been defending so well. And, it ends up being 5-0, so he's like, take him off. On another day, that's different. Obviously, it wasn't, but like in all those reasons, I'm not so displeased with the selection. Was it the right one? You know what? Maybe it wasn't right. But whereas Murphy, I think, was a categorical mistake, this I'm still more okay with. The outcome is what it is, and I think it was very fair for Isak to outscore him because I understood the risk I was taking on, and to be honest, it could have been more, right? Like I could have got outscored by more. Apart from that, it was really just not having Jacob Murphy, not choosing to go for him or Harvey Barnes this double gaming. That's quite literally it. Maybe I start Morgan Rogers, but I guess if I have Murphy, then maybe I don't start him as well, right? So that's pretty much it. It was really just the Newcastle boys not backing them and then putting up 9 goals and 4 last game week as well. It is what it is, and I've seen some huge scores across the board from a lot of you guys. So in that case, congratulations, and we move on. So let's get to double game week 33 and that content. We will start with one of the form sides in the Premier League at the moment, and that is Aston Villa. Whilst they may have been knocked out of the Champions League, it was another win for them against PSG at Villa Park. And since I haven't had an opportunity to touch on that, I really felt at the 62nd minute it was their tie to lose. And in reality, I think they should have gone through based on the opportunity that they had and created for themselves. Because when it's out the 62nd minute and you're 3-2 up, Villa Park was bouncing. Everyone was believing, and PSG mentally, they look so fragile. Even their bench, like in terms of their coaching stuff and their manager, they looked like they were really on the ropes. And then obviously you have the Asensio onto chance and just the general momentum and like half an hour plus. I really felt there was enough there for them to go and win the tie just in normal time. I think things didn't really go their way. Obviously, the missed chances. I didn't think the substitutes were great. A few of them not having the right amount of time added on. Like, how did they only get 3 minutes, right? So on another day, they go through. But regardless, they look good. So we would like to have their assets in, right? Especially when you consider the utility associated with them, considering double game week 36 isn't so far away. And they could very well be participating in that as a doubling team. So who do we go for? Well, firstly, we'll start towards the bottom of the side, and that is Morgan Rogers and Ezra Konsa. The 2 real expected minutes locks, apart from Emi Martinez and another one that we shall discuss. Konsa's box threat is there. You obviously saw him score the goal against PSG, but it wasn't just that. He could have had a goal in the first half where he passed it instead of shooting, and he really should have shot. He probably should have had that header, right, to make it 4-2 and tie it all up. Just in general, he's always in the right spots, especially in comparison to other players. He's almost a bit magnetic, and like I said, he just has the instincts of where to be and when to be there, and he's got the ability to actually connect well with the ball, even though he's not like the tallest player you've ever seen, right? But for all of those reasons, especially as price, and the fact that he's actually nailed down with expected minutes, I would be picking him up in so many spots. Morgan Rogers is like, I guess, version of him. Emery loves him. He'll play him every game. I think his proficiency to be able to generate attacking returns on the right side has improved. So it's not like we just need him on the left, and it's kind of unlikely that we're going to get him on the left for a while at least. So I think that's super helpful. The expected minutes is the big thing. And then when he has the final third quality that he does, I think, honestly, it's a bit of a no-brainer. When you consider the number of games, his potential to haul, his floor, and so on and so on. So for me, Morgan Rogers and Ezri Konsa are the two that I would really, really like to have on your side. And then for me, from there are 3/4 assets to discuss. Emi Martinez is not here, and he's more so of a structural. I think we can all agree that he certainly has upside associated to him, because if Aston Villa are to keep a clean sheet against Manchester City or Newcastle, there'll probably be some saves associated to that, and he'll pick up some bonus points and save points along with that, right? But whether they do, somewhat unlikely, I guess, given Newcastle's form and firepower, and City's firepower just in general. So I would say you probably, if you are going for a Villa asset, probably want to opt for double attack and then defense, as opposed to double defense and one attack. So then who do we look at? And there's 3 assets I would like to discuss in particular, two in a more positive light. One, maybe who's going under your radar. Firstly, we'll discuss the 2 who are likely to compete for that number 9 position, and that's Marcus Rashford and Ollie Watkins. Originally, when Marcus Rashford came to the club, started playing on that left-hand side, you saw him obviously produce a few assists for Asensio. And in general, I kind of just expected the front 3 of Rodgers, Watkins, and Rashford. However, it very much looks like he's going to be the number 9, or it's going to be Ollie Watkins, not both of them together, with Rashford shipped to the left. And therefore, predicting their expected minutes becomes a lot more difficult. They're 2 real quality players. And Watkins, until this season at least, on Duran saga and now Rashford, was their main man. I personally think with Rashford's performance against PSG, Watkins' poor cameo against PSG, albeit he was good against Southampton, Rashford, honestly, I think a little bit more likely to start the Newcastle game. And I would say just in general, he's probably first choice now as opposed to Watkins. So for those reasons, I really wouldn't be going to Ollie Watkins. It's not just that. You also look at the route, and it's probably Alexander Isak in many cases. Do you really want to be selling Isak away at Villa when he's going to be on your bench boost? I don't think so. I don't think that's worth the transfer when you're probably not going to get 2 starts out of Watkins. And the other thing is the efficiency of transfers. So important given the stage we're at. Most people don't have few transfers to like play around with, right? Especially because we've had to use so many in preparation. 29 and 33 and so on. For me, I would stay away from Watkins. If you want to gamble on the fact that Rashford starts both, or like has a really good game in the one he starts, or comes off the bench and does something, kind of account for the lack of expected minutes, then by all means. I personally don't love the risk at the moment, but I certainly understand it. But Watkins for me is just absolute no-go. I have Rashford ahead of him in terms of Emery's preferences. Both, look, I think Newcastle are just flying at the moment, and everything they touch seems to turn to gold at the moment, right? So even though like the conditions are there somewhat, and it's not like they're the best defense in the world either, right? And the other thing is, we'll speak about this in the Palace section, but Palace didn't really have a solution to City's high press and Newcastle's high press as well, right? They lost the ball so many times. It was a little bit better tonight, but they lost the ball so many times in ways they didn't need to. Villa, given the players they have, especially, and I'm thinking especially Yuri Tielemans in the middle, and even like Rodgers taking on the half turn and driving, I think we'll be able to get out that better and score goals. But Newcastle are kind of flying, so I don't love it. And then Manchester City, they should be there for the taking in terms of at least like one or two goals, right? Both teams scoring against them recently, or at least making chances. One differential shout that I quite like is someone who I touched on in the last Everything, and he got an assist, and that is Yuri Tielemans. Unai Emery has a preference to actually play him a little bit higher in these big games. One game that springs to mind is actually the reverse fixture of when Manchester City came to Villa Park. You saw Tielemans play higher, And I remember some of the balls that he was playing into John Duran, and they were really good. And he's got this ability to function as a more advanced player when he has that protection and produce, I would say, especially like these type of passes, which could really result in assists. He's also got the ball striking from range to be able to generate a goal for himself, or should he ever pop up in and around the box. And when he's an expected minutes guarantee, because even in these games where he doesn't play higher up, but play deeper as opposed to being on the bench, I don't think it's such a bad route, right? Like maybe you get a bit lucky, he gets a haul in one game, and then the expected minutes kind of covers everything else. So that's just something to consider. Whether I would go there, I'm not entirely sure, but it really is something to consider. I would not go for Asensio. I personally, right, was not like, and I was rooting for them. And who wasn't, right? Really, unless you're like a Birmingham fan on Tuesday night. I was not best pleased when I saw that he was coming on. I don't think these more intense type of games are best suited to him. Like he is more of an old school number 10, and I think there was a reason that his type of profile and him as a player has almost been phased out from the modern game. And it's because it's very difficult for him physically to meet demands of the modern game, especially like as this slightly weaker, more stylish number 10. And against Newcastle, I don't think you're going to be afforded that luxury. So if he's not really, really, really producing on the final action, I think he's a bit of a liability to have in the side. And as such, I wouldn't bank on his expected minutes for 33, especially when John McGinn's playing as well as he is. So for me, I would just leave him alone and prioritize Rodgers, Konsa, consider Tielemans, and then if you are going to go one of Rashford or Watkins, I would go Rashford, but just understand the risk associated with it. Should you be selling Crystal Palace assets? Not something that I expected to be talking about, but something that has become a theme due to their results over the past 5 days. They have conceded 9 in their last 2 games, but the theory certainly has some merit, right? Similar to Aston Villa, they have the potential for double game week 36, and I think that is some hidden utility associated with all of their assets at the moment, right? And I think it's quite a big deal because you would want them for that double, and if they beat Aston Villa, they're going to be there. And where there aren't so many other teams doubling this week, and as I mentioned previously, efficiency of transfers is, I won't say at an all-time high, but it's certainly higher than I'd say it has been on average this season in terms of the need for it to be efficient, especially because we have less. I personally wouldn't be going here. Now, I can see this double game week not going so well for one particular reason. It could go well, like there's enough for it to go well, but there's one particular thing that I don't like about it. Against Manchester City, what I saw often in the first half was they were pressed high, they were pressed intensely and intently, and they lost the ball a lot doing the same thing. They would play these like clip balls, and they would just reach the opposition centre-back, reach like the opposition's midfielders who were like deeper, and then the opposition would not even have to just recycle in general, but just get the attack going, and at such a high point in the pitch. Their centre-backs and even like midfielders to an extent, and the wing-backs, didn't really have the temperament. I think it's more of a temperament thing, as opposed to purely technical. More so a combination. I say it's a combination. I do think the temperament has a lot to do with it. And they would just play these clip balls where I guess they could have taken a greater risk and played riskier passes into some of their players, like in more central areas, or try to really find Eze and Sarr by taking a split second extra. And just the fact that they lost the ball like this so many times, I think gave the opposition momentum. It allowed them to stay in pressure. And as a result, they definitely conceded chances of it. And then sometimes they get up the pitch, but conceded transition a few times were just really direct attacks with speed. And I think there was a lot of 1v1 issues that they had across the pitch and somewhat systematic as well. And I think it's Bournemouth, obviously really aggressive high press. We've seen it being successful. And Arsenal arguably have the best press in the league. Not quite as like high or aggressive as Bournemouth, but definitely better structured, I would say. And I would say it's the best coached press in the league as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Palace have some issues against those, maybe especially Bournemouth, and then concede some goals from there. Realistically, you're probably not on double Palace defense, and because Munoz has such a decent chance at getting an attack in return, and he has a double where most others don't, and where are you going to go if you sell him? I think just keep him. And then, like, Bournemouth, at least there's goals on offer. Arsenal, maybe because it's before the Cup, for them, I guess it'll be Champions League, so shortly after. They might have like one eye on that, and I think they certainly will with the league being wrapped up. So maybe you get some chances, right? And it's not like between Eze, Mateta, Sarr, and Munoz, they don't have enough in them to score past anyone. They do. I think this was a slight blip. I don't think it will be as bad as this. I just think it's very difficult to justify the transfers, even if you think they're going to do poorly, given it's a double game week and there aren't exactly the most attractive set of options. That's my take on that. In terms of Mateta's minutes, as the last thing, I wouldn't say I'm super bullish just because Eddie Nketiah is knocking, and ever since he's returned from injury, hasn't even got close to playing 90. But I do think, obviously, the City substitution was a freak incident, and today, like, you're not going to be 5-0 down like the 50th minute in most games, right? I think that was a bit of a freak incident as well. So, in a more normal game state, I think you can expect 7. Moving on to the third team of this double game week, and there appears to be one particular talking point that everyone is concerned with this double game week, and he's come from pretty much no one. That is Kevin De Bruyne, because he hasn't really been a consideration for anyone, I would say, outside of the first few weeks, and even then, only very few went for him, and I actually think quite intelligently, albeit the outcome largely unfortunate. So, is he worth it? And that's really the big question, I would say, of this double game week, alongside certain superstar who plays for Arsenal. If Foden is injured, they don't really have another person to fill that attacking right-sided 8 role, just slash like an attacking central midfielder role, aside from James McAtee. But he started one game all season. That was the last game. He started on the right. And Pep traditionally doesn't place as much trust in putting people into the middle straight away. Just think about how many years it took for Foden to kind of come through. Only last season did he really come through and make that spot his own as he would have planned. So it's unlikely, especially away at Everton, an in-form Everton, physical Everton, and just a good Everton, like a really good Everton, like I really, really, really like their side. It's unlikely he plays James McAtee in there, which would mean that he probably just has to play Kevin De Bruyne in there. Yeah, he could play Bernardo Silva in there, but like the lack of attacking threat, unless he goes back to his winger system where he uses Doku and Savio to basically break their block repeatedly, or maybe he just plays all three of them together: De Bruyne, Savio, and Doku. Those are all potential solutions, right? But personally, for me, I think De Bruyne starts, and I don't think he would drop him after the game that he had and after his improvement in Villa health as well. However, how do his legs cope against Villa, and will Pep take that risk starting him against such a physical side? Because remember, Unai Emery's different approach. Say he picks a similar team to the PSG, Amadou Onana, Kamara, even John McGinn's like engine. John McGinn's got an engine on him. Rodgers has a physical side, and I'm just like, that is something to consider, having De Bruyne in there, because you're not going to get as much defensive output as you would like. Obviously, he's De Bruyne, right? So you have that special talent, kind of the trade-off in this particular season, but it's enough firepower to really hurt City. You think about it, right? If it's not for a couple millimeters, they're 3-0 down against Palace, and I don't think they come back. And then it could have got a little bit ugly as well, right? And there's no reason that like Villa can't start the game in a similar manner. They've got the talent and like the physical profiles in which to do so. And then going down the line, maybe Foden gets one game as well, and then maybe all of a sudden the double in 36 isn't a double for him. I personally am leaning to not taking the risk. Not only do you have to predict the expected minutes, but he's actually got to go and then get the points. And just because he did it against Palace doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do it against Everton or even Villa, right? You don't expect Everton to 5. You don't expect Villa to concede 5. And they almost definitely won't. Like Everton conceding 5 at home, this particular side, I'm not sure there's any side on the planet that's going to go there. And I would expect them to score 5 or even 4, right? So for me personally, I don't think the prospects are quite as good as they're made out to be. Naturally, there's upside there, right? It's Kevin De Bruyne, but I would leave it alone. In terms of a defensive opportunity, he has this kind of like a 1 goal a season type of guy, I feel like. I feel like there's enough box threat that over a season, if you accumulate it, giving him 1 goal is fair enough. And I've seen a few instances, like quite recently, where I'm like, oh, you know what? I could dabble here, and I wouldn't be surprised if he scores. So that is something to consider. Whether they keep a clean sheet, I'm not so confident that, just because like I really back Everton. I back Villa. Then I back Everton to score. The fixtures after that are pretty decent. Well, they appear to be, but Southampton have scored in a lot of their games recently, like a lot. Wolves are obviously flying. They're clear of relegation now. They've been very good under Vitor Pereira, and they've been scoring goals as well, right? Double gaming would also consist of Bournemouth, and then the other two, I think, is like Fulham away and one other not so easy fixture. Are they going to keep many cleans? I'm not so sure. With a limited attacking threat, not great on the bonus point system, I would probably leave it alone. It's not impossible that he has like a great game week. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a 15-pointer once. I just think a little bit risky for my liking, especially considering of a transfer in most cases, right? So yeah, I don't hate it though. I don't hate it. I don't hate it because structurally it makes a lot of sense. Have double City defense just because of the lack of options, the double 136, so on and so on. And then lastly with them, I didn't speak about Edison and Ortega here. That was something I was going to touch on in the DS section. I haven't been particularly impressed with Ortega's performances, like the one against Brighton. If he comes in, I don't think their clean sheet odds go up. I think they go down. And the other thing is, Edison's probably back before the end of the season. So even if you bring Ortega in, then at some point he's going to get replaced. Pretty expensive. You're not going to sell Raya. You probably just want to leave him alone. And finally, Savinho and Foden. The latter for me is an easier sell. I think we'll just have him minutes managed / reduced till the end of the season, especially in competition with Bruyne and this kind of being De Bruyne's farewell tour. I would just leave that alone entirely and jump off ship if you can. Savinho, I think this is so much more complicated. I would say there are 2/3 main negatives. One, his current state of health. He was meant to start the game against Palace, but a late fitness test put him out of it. He's clearly not 100% of the way there. Now, hopefully he's recovered, but we're not going to know, right? Or at least we're unlikely to know. Pep's system choice, obviously he's used that system. Think about the one away at Old Trafford. He used Foden, Bernardo, and De Bruyne, like 3 interiors, I guess you could call them, in that particular system, with Marmoush straying to that left-hand side. No room for a additional winger. I personally think that Savinho is actually a wonderful weapon to break down the Everton block and then equally use in transitions against Villa. Whether Pep sees that differently and opts for not to have a winger, well, that would just see Savinho bench for both games, and also his ceiling just because he doesn't goals, and in fact he's only scored 1. So keeping him isn't the easiest thing in the world. It's just kind of be justified because you expect at least maybe, let's say, 1 start. Let's just say for argument's sake, 1 start and 1 benching appearance in the double game week. That's 3 points to start with. If he gets 1 assist, whilst he doesn't have the highest ceiling, he has a great floor. He is so underrated on the bonus system just because he hasn't got many points this season. He is so good on the bonus points. Even an assist can get him knocking on not just 1, but 2 and 3, as we showed in the Leicester game. And with that, it makes it harder to justify it for a hit. So it's close, but I think I would just keep him and I just hope you get a little bit lucky and the replacement potentially doesn't do so well. And that's possible just because, as I'm sure you all know, there aren't exactly a bunch of options jumping out at us that are just unbelievable for one reason or another. And that's that on Manchester City. Finally, in relation to the double game week assets, we look at Arsenal. Another huge talking point, and that is SAKA, the man who scored at the Bernabeu to send Real Madrid packing even more than they already were. It's primarily a question of expected minutes for him, just like it was right now. I do think it's slightly different because we rely on him more. He's got a floor, he's got a high ceiling, he's got fixtures. He has probably got better expected minutes down the line as well, because you can't just bench him for every Premier League game because you've got some Champions League. You need some rhythm, and not only that, if he's fit, why not play him? It's better to get some more minutes, legs, and confidence, and building on next season. Going to try anything, building on things in Premier League games that you might want to try in the Champions League, and so on, right? Especially because him and Mourinho haven't played together so much. If Mourinho is to continue being the 9, which he will be, just develop a better relationship. Especially because Arsenal is so well coached. There are so many layers to their system and their performances, with coaching, their pressing, or their laddering, or build up, and so on and so on. I think it just makes a lot of sense to get him back for Mourinho, especially to have a better understanding of how to relate with him on the pitch, right? So I think his expected minutes down the line will be better than maybe currently perceived, at least from game 36 onward, because Bournemouth game sandwiched in PSG. But yeah, I just think that whilst the expected minutes this particular game week might not be as good as you would like, you probably expect him to start 1. And I just think that the fixtures, respectfully, and him as a player, he's just too good for me not to go here, I think. So I quite like it. I really do. He is SAKA. So many routes to points. One of the most routes to points out of all the assets in the game. Penalties, set pieces, open play crosses, different angles of open play crosses, different angles of shots, different ranges, ball striking, so on. I like him a lot, a lot. Marino would be a very interesting alternative. It's just the fact that I think Trossard might get one game at 9, and as such, even if he is to move into the midfield, I'm not sure how many points he's going to be able to generate from there. And really, I think if Trossard was to play 9, maybe Marino, that would be his bench game. But yeah, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I understand the appeal. Because who knows, maybe he does get 2 at 9. Trossard's interesting because he's not in the first 11 for the Champions League. So do you just start him one game at 9, give Marino a rest, start him at left wing and give Martinelli a rest in the other? And in that case, with these type of fixtures, with the fact that Trossard can get a little bit streaky, all of a sudden not the worst option in the world. And I don't mind it as some form of upside aggression in 33. I really don't. Defensively, I quite like both of them. I think Kiwior's had to present one to everyone. It would probably be Kiwior, given I think it's fairly nailed. I don't really trust Arteta when he says that Calafiori is this close to coming back. As we know, him and Eddie Howe are prone to a little lie or two when it comes to the availability and fitness state of players. But Kiwior has been so good at left centre back that he can just continue playing there. The thing with Saliba is you get more goal threat with Gabriel at the side, but it's obviously a huge price difference. If you are adamant and you're so confident that price difference, which is big, $1 million, won't affect your season down the line, then I don't mind going for Saliba to try and essentially capture an extra 9 points in the game. But if you do, then that's a very good option. There's a clean sheet. There's at least one there for him, right? Like, he can definitely get one clean sheet in this double game. Not so easily because Ipswich have firepower and so do Palace, but it's on the cards. Finally, bench boost 33. In most cases, I think it should be played. One particularly big thing that I thought about is every week you delay it, every single week the probability of having to use a transfer to optimize it in some fashion will increase. And as such, I think it's easier just to get it out the way when the benches are quite strong in general, especially given the fact that we don't have any free transfers, most of us, and the fact that we've got 36 coming along. So that's that. And I think that's the main bit to it, right? That particular point is the main bit to it, especially because, like I said, most benches are quite strong. Take mine, just because it's not so different from so many people's. Areola, Isaac, Burn, Eka Williams. I've seen a lot of like cheaper, like Areola / Martinez, plus like an Isaac, plus like a Newcastle defender, plus another defender, right? Whether Bradley or Kilmer, which most people don't have, but like a Ryan Ainori, all of those type of guys. I think it just makes a lot of sense. The last thing I will touch on this subject is in the position of a Newcastle, say, who has Villa away. Do you expect them to keep a clean sheet? No, probably not. Are they the most likely to get attacking returns? No, probably not. So if we cap them, let's say we give them 2 points and go and get a double game week defender for a hit. Let's just say they already start on 4 points. You only really need 2 points to now recover that hit, right? And I think when they have 2 games to do that, it just makes more sense outside of the appearance point. So I'm actually more inclined to take a hit for this defense position, given you are realistically going from a single game week defender to a double game week defender. And that is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like on the video. I shall see you tomorrow for team selection and solving your problems combined. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, and I shall see you very soon. Goodbye.